Hi, my dear Russell family. So we are continuing the series on Saturn in Aries. I think Tsveti is the fifth or the sixth guest now. We had Frank Clifford, we had AstroLada, we had Brit and others. So now Tsveti is going to enlighten us, but from a specific meaning of Saturn point of view. And that's going to be Saturn in Aries in the lenses of a relationship. So how Saturn might affect relationship. And the reason why we wanted to make this video is because Saturn is exalted in Libra. So obviously we are in the Aries Libra axis. It's going to be affecting our relationships, not just with the self, but with others as well. So welcome, Tsveti. How are you?
Hi everyone, I'm good, thank you, and thank you for having me today on this interesting topic, I would say, because I wouldn't have thought of it. Actually, it was your idea, and I'm really grateful for it because I was kind of given the chance to think about it myself. So yeah,
Mm.
let's see what comes out of it.
Where is your Aries cusp?
Sixth house.
Oh, sixth house. Okay. So, for example, sixth house can relate to relationship as well. And often we forget that because the fifth house, we go on a date. With the seventh house, we get married. So there is something in between as well. For example, we move together and we do stuff together on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But so what do you have got to share with us today?
Should we just put it out there, the technicalities of when Saturn enters Aries, although it has been said so
Absolutely.
many
If you
times
feel
already,
so,
but let's
let's
put it
do that.
in to have it in the video. So Saturn will enter Aries this month on the 25th of May. And then it will go retrograde at almost 2 degrees Aries, somewhere on the 13th of July. And then it will go back into Pisces on the 2nd of September. So this year we'll have a very short period of time practically to just dip our toes into the energy of Saturn in Aries. And then it will ingress into Aries on the 15th of February 2026, and it will stay there for two more years and won't come back to Pisces anymore. And mentioning the signs, I would like to just say that actually, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and Aries is the first one. So it's like going back and forth between the last and the first. It's like starting a new cycle. So whatever happens during the summer and actually between May and September, specifically when Saturn is in Aries, we will have a chance to close the chapter that seems to be closing now for us and then to start building something totally new, maybe unexpected, maybe rush. Maybe we haven't thought about it even because Aries is the first impulse about something, getting an idea and just head first into it. So yeah, this will be a very transformational period, so to say, where we close one chapter and open another one, and it's a whole new 29-year cycle because Saturn will be going through the signs for the next 29 years. So this is something important. Then when it comes to relationships, I really wanted to put it out there. What would be the elements of a good relationships? What would be supportive of a relationship to thrive and grow? And then we can see how Saturn in Aries will be supporting or hindering that as qualities. Of course, it's very subjective because it's a matter of personal values very often. But yeah, there are some general things we can say are important for a relationship to thrive. So definitely it's mutual respect. And here the topic of boundaries. And as we know, Aries could be a little bit disrespectful about other people's boundaries, and it could be a bit stubborn when it comes to imposing their own point of view and not listening to others. And this is again the opposition with Libra, which is listening actively and kind of, paying attention to other people's boundaries and respecting them. So this could be one of the topics with Saturn in Aries where um, if we have too firm boundaries and are not willing to step back and just objectively have a look at the other person's ideas, values, and thoughts and we don't listen actively, then Saturn will force us somehow while it is in Aries, because Saturn is a teacher. Saturn likes it slow. Saturn doesn't like, getting head first and being aggressive, imposing yourself onto others without having the experience and the actual knowledge about things, while Aries is very rush. And so if we have too firm boundaries, I think that Saturn in Aries will actually make us calm down a little bit by creating some difficulties, delays, issues for us in our relationships life, and then kind of help us learn how to soften up a little bit, like getting in touch a little bit with this Libra energy on the opposite of the sign. And if on the other hand, we have too soft boundaries, like we never know how to set a boundary and we're always like people pleasing, I think that Saturn in Aries will help us learn how to set these boundaries and how to assert ourselves. So since Saturn is the teacher and Saturn actually, through some hardship, through making it difficult for us, teaches us the qualities that we need to have to be balanced. It will be playing out differently for different people, indeed, depending on where we are and how we deal in our everyday life with relationships and with others. So the end goal is to be balanced and to treat them like with kindness. And even if we are in disagreement, which will happen with Aries energy, I believe a lot, we need to keep this kindness and respectful for the other party participating. So Aries is very open, very honest, and it can be actually very brutal at times, like telling their own truth here now, in sometimes in a very aggressive way. So we can manage to balance this and keep the honesty, keep the clarity, and have a clear expression of our feelings, of who we are, of our identity as well, because that's what Aries is. It's related to the ego that we have, and expressing our needs and concerns openly and authentically as well, which is again Aries, but also being able to hold back and to listen to the other side, which is Saturn. If we are not, then there will be drama, there will be fights, there can be some escalations, like aggressive escalations, and really then we'll have to make amends and kind of learn to listen, because that's the lesson actually, to be more balanced. And what do you think about it? How do you feel about
Well,
it?
yeah, I took some notes because I wanted to reflect on a couple of things that you said. And yes, we have had Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Often we forget that Pisces is also a relationship sign because this is the exalted position of Venus. And obviously, Pisces is about unity. So one of the questions is that did you create unity in the Piscean cusp in your chart? So in my case, this is the first house. So did I create any type of unity with my body? Do I like my body? Can I appreciate it? And so forth. Because if I do so in the second house, most likely this is going to somehow pay off. And for example, Tsveti had Saturn in the fifth house. So can she actually appreciate the fun and the leisure? And can she take time off and all those type of things? Because if not, then it can lead to burnout, health issues in the sixth house. But if she did and she had a lot of sex with her husband and a lot of fun and travels and holidays and all those type of things, then this can become regular in the sixth house. And then we're going to do that. We're going to build on that. We're going to actually empower each other or suggest each other, you know what, let's take a bit of a time off because that's important. But if she doesn't do that, then maybe it brings challenges at work. Right. And then she's going to get laid off, for example, because she wasn't able to appreciate something that she truly loves. So that's one thing. And this, when we talk about relationship is not just a relationship with a romantic partner, but it's relationship with others and relationship with objects and the nature and all those type of things as well. So yes, Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra, and you know, imagine Saturn being in the sign of Libra as your marriage vows. So basically, you know, whatever you say, whatever you write down, whatever, basically you make a promise. In the sign of Aries, it looks like that you're going to have to make a promise that I'm going to be myself. And then once you become yourself, the unapologetic version of yourself, others will notice, and some will F off, and some will stick around, and they will love you to bits. So in a way, Saturn in Pisces was about self-acceptance. Now in the sign of Aries, I'm going to take action about it, and I'm going to kind of like, yeah, show who the heck, you know, what I'm made of. And we don't need to be an Iron Man with this. It could just simply talk to us about having to accept who we are. But mastering the ability to accept who we are and not necessarily attacking others by being different, or being able to learn to retain the individuality through the lenses of others, because we've got a polarity here, and that's Libra as well. Or how to be separate and how to merge at the same time with others. Like, do I depend on people's judgment, or will I trust my own instincts? So that's
Yeah,
what I wanted to add so
yeah.
far. It was a bit more lengthy, but
So no, that was great, and actually it comes up to testing independence and my true self versus commitment to others, and how I can remain myself and still be committed. Like the marriage that you mentioned, you know, in the marriage you are yourself, and it's best to be yourself. Otherwise, if you keep compromising and kind of have soft boundaries in a way, if you merge into the partner's needs and desires and like please the partner all the time and suppress yourself, then all, you know, for the sake of the commitment, for the sake of the marriage, for the sake of peace, for the sake of whatever the value could be, then Saturn will now test this. And Saturn in Aries will be, in terms of relationships, it will be about redefining the boundaries as well, redefining the commitment. It's like renegotiating the terms of the commitment as well, and to see where commitment starts actually, and where you are, where you stay within the commitment. And because Saturn likes to really follow through whatever you start. Saturn is a planet which would require you to do the same thing thousands of times until you master it. So it could, and in this way, reach maturity, because Saturn is also the wise man, the mature person. And this maturity with Aries, I've been thinking that it could be actually achieved through conflict. And if, because Libra, for example, which is on the opposite side of the scale, it has a really difficult time to be into a conflict, to create a conflict, to assert themselves through conflict. So Saturn in Aries will take this part, because we all have this within us. So Saturn in Aries will show us this part of us where we are angry. We need to stand up for ourselves, and it will give us the tool and the experience, indeed, how to do that. And when we gain experience within something, we are no longer ruled by fear, which is against Saturn. Saturn is also related to fear. So if we are fearful to assert ourselves within a relationship, and as you mentioned, not only with a marriage partner, but any relationship possible, including the relationship with ourselves, where we hold ourselves back and we pent up all these emotions and the fear and the anger, and we don't express it. So Saturn will give us a more effective, hopefully effective way to express this, maybe through some physical activity as well, but when it comes to relationships, also through conflict. And yeah.
you know,
So
imagine the Aries Libra axis as a scale. Because obviously Libra rules scale, but then Aries has got something to do with that one as well. And what does a scale do? It measures. How do we do that? We put weight on it. How much we can kind of like, how much does it weigh? Saturn is the weight. So it really feels to me that obviously it could indicate that there is the burden on the individual to do something for others or the expectation that others should do something to me, because Aries is also about entitlement. So I deserve preferential treatments. But we're going to have to find a balance here. Often the problem with Aries, it wants to find the shortest way. Saturn says, let's just go, sideways and let's just do it slowly. So Saturn wants to enjoy the process, the productivity on that road. And it also pretty much feels to me that because you were talking about Saturn as the mastery and the learning. How does Aries learn? Well, Aries needs to be knocked over a few times and then it learns from it. Jesus Christ, I always get punched, I don't know, in Carrefour shop. So I'm not gonna go there anymore, right? So I'm gonna go to another one, but Aries needs to be punched a few times to kind of start learning that. So if we don't kind of like go on that learning journey, Saturn is gonna punch us surely
Yeah.
in the face. Right?
Yeah.
But when we go on that learning curve and then we maybe learn from the first mistake, and we're not going to be projecting this onto our relationships, then we can actually find balance and harmony and peace with other people as well. So yes, or Aries does take a little bit longer time to mature because this is a kind of like the childlike, the
Yeah,
toddler
the
type of
toddler.
energy. And the kid, you tell the kids that don't climb up on the roof. I don't know if you ever watched Anne Shirley, but I was always in love with that very old movie. I think it's a Canadian book, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, and then she was a very Aries, like little girl, and she was told, "Oh, I dare you to go on top of the roof." And then she was like, "Really?" She put her head up like that. I'm gonna walk up. Of course, she fell down. And then what happened was that she kind of broke her ankle. She got her ankle broken, and they wanted to help her to take her home. No, she was like, "No, thank you, Mr. Gleib," or whatever his name was. "I can walk." And then she collapsed kind of like in the middle of the forest, and then someone had to help her home. So there is that pride question as well with Aries, and Saturn kind
Yeah.
of wants to
And this
contain that a little bit.
stubbornness of Aries is inexhaustible. They can kind of stand up and fight the same battle 1,000 times with the same energy level. And now Saturn, though, it will restrict this access to this pool of energy that they have, so that Saturn will slow them down a little bit, and with fixes, they will no longer work because Saturn will want some diligent, everyday work on the topic, within relationships as we talk about them now. So, and it can be very healing indeed, because when you slow down and when you start looking at the process itself, we actually see what motivates us. We see if it really matters. Oh, Loa, hi, Loa.
Yeah, she's bugging me. She wants to come up.
So yeah, when Saturn slows things down for Aries, they will have the chance and they need to use it to really see what's their motivation and not to get into conflict and asserting themselves just for the conflict's sake. They will have the time to think about it first and then act, because Aries is much more act before thinking, and then we'll see the consequences. Saturn rules consequences. Saturn rules responsibility and taking responsibility for one's actions. And I believe that when Saturn actually is in Aries, it will give the other perspective. Kind of, you will be able to see the other side of things and not only looking, not being so much on the nose, so to say. But yeah, it will be frustrating for sure, because Aries is very much used to, getting the results immediately. And Saturn will be asking for perseverance, consistency, and diligent work, definitely. And it will be critical for long-term emotions and relationships as well. And I think that whatever starts and whatever is being built in terms of relationships during the time Saturn is in Aries, it will be there to stay for a long time, because it will go through the process that's needed for a relationship to become consistent, honest, actually, and reliable as well. That's all that Saturn rules. Something will be there to stay. And as you mentioned, Saturn is a part of a cycle. It's a slow-moving planet, so it's very important on the personal level for everyone to look at their own chart and to see what happened during the Saturn's transit through Pisces, and how and what was integrated and how it's going to play out now in Aries, because it's not like taking out the sign itself and only looking at the sign now. It's what we were, where we are in terms of our personal growth, our values, and how we are able to connect on in general. So yeah, and also Saturn in Aries, it could bring us the lessons that we need to learn through some isolation, because that's actually what Saturn also rules, and some loneliness. So if we tend to go and fight with everyone on whatever topic you can imagine, and if we're very feisty like Aries would be, then maybe, and if everyone was okay and put up with our anger and accepted us for this person, now with Saturn in Aries, this might not be the case, and people might finally say, that's enough. Enough is enough. I can't stand you anymore. You need to change something, otherwise I'm not communicating with you anymore. And yeah, it's like bringing things to an extreme so that you can bring back the balance through Libra. And sometimes isolation, not sometimes, but always, I would say, isolation actually brings us this clarity that we need, because when we remain on our own in isolation, then we don't have a choice. We actually need to think about our priorities, what's important, who's important, what do we want in our life, and what's our relationship within ourselves, with us, and how does it project on the outside. So yeah, I think it's we need to learn patience in love. And Saturn in Aries can feel frustrating there, because Aries is definitely not a patient sign, and it will be testing the results. So still we need to build slowly and deliberately. We need to put effort every day. And if we need to make amends with someone, we need to do this every day, a small step, one step at a time. And also not looking like 10 steps ahead, but only focusing on the first step, on the next step that we need to make, so that we can progress and build. And when we look back like 2 years from now, then we will know what we have achieved. Maybe while we are in the making, in the process of becoming, a better, a kinder someone, then yeah, we will not be able to see how things change. But then looking back 2 years from now, it will show the result. So for Aries, it's very important to remember to stay patient and respectful and kind to others, because Saturn will definitely ask them to do that in a way.
Libra is the sign of etiquette. So, and the learning curve, because the opposing sign is always teaching something. So Aries is learning from Libra. So what Aries needs to learn is basically a bit of an etiquette. So basically, love others the way you want to be treated. That's a message here. But it starts with self-love. And I love the fact that you mentioned that Saturn is the planet of long-term relationships, because often people are super afraid of it. Yeah, we're going to have to work on it. Of course, we're going to have to put ourselves out there. Let's say Saturn is transiting your seventh house. We're going to have to commit to that person. We're going to have to accept their flaws and, the good stuff about them too. It's the glue.
Yeah,
But I would say Saturn in Aries, you know what? You can always walk away from any type of situations, but you cannot walk away from who you are. You always have to live with yourself. So if you did something shady in the sign of Pisces, you're gonna get caught with Saturn in the sign of Aries. It's gonna get revealed. Basically, if you cheated on your wife or husband the last couple of years because you did something in the background, you're gonna get caught. Saturn catches you. Saturn might allow you to do it for a little while, but eventually the consequences must be paid.
yeah,
So maybe it's, like Saturn in Aries, maybe a little bit of a reminder that if you did something dirty before, it's time to kind of like maybe ask for forgiveness in a way.
yeah,
Because we shouldn't forget that Aries is super sexual, and we're going to talk about the sex part as well in a
yes,
little while. But Aries is super sexual, so that's why I mentioned the cheating part, which might have,
yeah,
could have happened. And Pisces is shady, things behind the scene, a little bit lurky, does stuff without others knowing. So obviously we've got this, like, events are building on each other. Saturn is the build.
yes.
So whatever we did in Pisces, the consequences are paid in Aries.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned this, so I just get this idea and I will share it. I hope it makes sense, but it's like when we do something shady and something which is not by the book and with the rules, which is not respectful during a Saturn transit, um, it's like we kind of live on credit because Saturn is the planet of karma and it's the planet which gives us back what we saw generally. And now being in Aries, Aries is actually the seed that we put into the ground and it will kind of, turn into a tree. In the sign of Pisces, we have everything. We have the roots, we have the stem, we have the crown, we have the fruits, we have a full tree, and the realization that we are all connected from the seed to the fruit, actually. So Aries has all this knowledge within only, and it's the first impulse to put this into the ground. But we need to remember we need to have the best conditions for a seed to become a tree with the fruits. So yeah, what we sow, that's what we reap, as they say. And with Aries, it's very important to have a quality seed to put, yes, kindness and um, respect and in relationships so that we have a really fully grown tree at the end of the cycle and like a long-term relationship, as you mentioned, ruled by Saturn.
Something
On the
that came to
sexual,
my mind is that in the sign of Aries, Sun is exalted.
yes,
And obviously, Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra.
Libra.
Now, Sun and Saturn are natural enemies. So the
Mm-hmm.
light and the darkness, or, it's kind of like the light and the dawn. Now, Aries is spring, Libra is the fall. So in the fall, the leaves are starting to fall off the trees. So because we are preparing for winter. While in Aries season, obviously the flowers are blooming and everything is growing and it's beautiful. The weather is getting better. So for me, it also feels like with Saturn in Aries that the radiant self is the radiant self ready to surrender or retreat and then respect the natural flow of change.
Yeah.
And Saturn is family legacy, and Aries is that toddler energy. So the childlike energy, the first 18 months of our lives, Saturn in Aries might be asking us to go back to that first 18 months to kind of relive it, to rewrite it, so that our relationships can improve with others. Because everything is rooted, just like Tsveti said. We've got the trunk, we've got the roots, we've got the crown, and we cannot blossom without going within and doing the exploration. And Aries is one of the signs that is connected to exploration.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, I will go back to the sexual part of things because Aries ruled by Mars, And Mars is related to sex and sexual energy. So with Saturn in Aries, it could be restricted in a way. And it could, when it comes to relationships, it can be used as a way to control us, because Saturn is control and Aries is sexual energy. So maybe the partner could use sex to control us both ways. I mean, either not giving it or giving it for something, kind of. So there is this sense of manipulation even. And yeah, it's maybe it will cause some change in the sexual style that you have. The dynamic of the relationships will change a lot when it comes to sexual energy. And yeah, um, it can be restricted out on the physical level as well. It could cause some problems with sexuality on the physical level, because practically Mars rules the muscles, it rules the strength, it rules the physical activity and the physical energy. So generally with Saturn there, it could be pretty much restricted. And maybe if you do sports actively, it's good to think about always not skipping the warm up. Always do the warm up, because otherwise you might strengthen the muscles in a bad way and cause an injury, which will be restricting you from movement. And yeah, we need to be more careful there.
No,
So
it's interesting because often teeth and stuff like that is associated with Capricorn and Saturn, of course. But I tend to see teeth problems popping up a lot with Venus in the sign of Aries, or when we have got Aries activations going on. And of course, Saturn is the fall position of Aries. So we can have infections in the gum and all those type of things. Obviously, with Aries, we have to remove that. But I think, like as I said, the exalted ruler of Aries is the sun, which is about shining the brightest.
yeah.
So Saturn in the sign of Aries, it says, in order for us to be the brightest star ever, we do need to understand our darker side too. So if we have got sexual like abbreviations, we need to kind of make peace with it, or we need to understand where it comes from, where it's
Yes.
stemmed from, and all those type of things. And then also, with Libra is the decision, the choices. Saturn wants to make the right choice. So the other question could be popping up here is that, am I making the choices based on what others need, or am I making the choices based on my selfish needs?
Yeah,
So
it's
from a
like,
sexual point of view, okay, I finished. Sorry, honey, let's go. Or am I going to satisfy my partner? And you know what? This has become so dirty in this community nowadays. So, I mean, in this current era, I've heard so many people complaining that, let's say, the husband finished and the woman hasn't, and they just went to the shower and so on. So, not thinking of others. And hopefully, Saturn will teach us a little bit about how important it is to give joy and pleasure, not only to ourselves, but to others as well, because then we're going to get a lot more back in return.
yes, exactly, because giving is receiving. And that's something that we need to consciously think about, that whatever you give, you actually receive one way or another, not necessarily on the spot, like Aries would like, to return the favor now. But whatever we give out, that's what comes back to us energetically as well. And whatever hardship comes, or delay, or difficulty in any relationship that we might have, it will help us get in touch with our authentic true self. And then we will know what we like, what we don't like, and we will be able to put it out there and to set a boundary and to communicate it more honestly, like Aries would do. But as we mentioned, with kindness and respect for the other. So being our true self without being imposing onto others, like being free to be ourselves, but also letting others be free for themselves and kind of giving them space to be themselves. not jumping on their head a little bit. I imagine, because the toddler, what does the toddler do? It jumps on everyone's head until they achieve whatever they want, right? So Aries is a little bit like that. So maybe the toddler will get tired a little bit, yeah, and will retreat somehow back into itself, and yeah, learn to somehow navigate its emotions, its impulses, because it's an impulse, you know.
I mean, surely this position is so much to do with relationship, at least this year.
Yeah,
Why? Because when Saturn ingresses into the sign of Aries, the dispositor of that is
Mars in
Mars,
Leo,
and that's on 17th degree of
in Leo.
Leo.
Mhm.
And Leo is sexuality and individuality. The tightest aspect Mars will have in that ingression chart is basically Venus on 18th degree of Aries. So what I'm explaining here to everyone, in case you don't understand what it is about, you can actually erect a chart for the ingression moment, and that's going to be giving us clues about Saturnian topics, where the burden is going to come from, or where we can achieve something. So it looks like the world can achieve things by creating greater relationships with the Venus and Mars trine. Venus is going to be kind of close by to Chiron as well, so meaning that we have got a self-love issue there. We've got certain type of wounds to work through. Imagine in the countries as well. Who is my friend? Who is my boss? Who do I know with Mars in Leo? Right? Oh, I know, I don't know, the VP of US, so I'm protected. And then Saturn comes into the picture and says, I don't give a crap about who you know. The law is the law because Saturn is society is based on law. So Saturn says, I don't care who you know, I'm still going to punish you in one way or another. So obviously, everyone has to pay the price.
Yeah, and because I also looked at the chart, and I was looking at Mars specifically as the dispositor of Saturn in Aries, and actually somewhere on the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of August, Mars will be opposing from Libra. And
Yeah.
yeah, this sector, it will be a very tight and exact aspect. Saturn will already be retrograde. So whatever happens now, while Saturn is direct through Aries, this will be until mid-July. It will, you will see the consequences after that until mid-August, and until the ingress in September, on the 2nd of September in Pisces. It will be, yeah, and it will be very much related to relationships, because actually Mars will be opposing from Libra, and Libra rules relationships, as we mentioned before. So yeah, I wanted to mention this, so thank you for bringing this up. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's like if someone wants to be looking at what is going to be happening with Mercury, which is the news, media, and all those type of things. Mercury is about to enter Taurus this week. You just erect a chart for that moment when Mercury shifts into Taurus, and that entire chart is going to talk to you about um, what news there will be in the world.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I looked up just right now, actually, if any asteroid will be in conjunction to Mars or Saturn. And now I don't know how to pronounce the asteroids. So its number is 51. If someone wants to be looking it up, it's called something like Terpsichore. Now, anyway, what we need to know about her, that she was one of the nine muses. So it was about inspiration. Actually, it represented classical music and the traditional type of things. And the muses were meant to be the offsprings of Zeus. And basically, they also represent somehow memories as well. So, of course, we know the story with Zeus that he was cheating on Hera all the time, and obviously it was like a disastrous marriage, pretty much. And we also know that Hera wanted to punish him all the time for this. So one of the ways she tried to punish Zeus was to kind of take away the muses from him because they were kind of like a little bit dear to Zeus. But by the way, the Muses also represents dancing a little bit. So often it's very apparent in very famous dancers chart, for example. But also it could represent any type of artistic abilities. And also, negatively speaking, it also represents certain type of tragedies in our life as well, due to the fact, of course, that we had Hera trying to kill these muses. So, obviously, Leo, what is Leo? It's about fun. So, it kind of like really talking to me about also with that Venus and Mars trine, that we're gonna have to be able to go back to that toddler energy. And like Tsveti said, a child is gonna jump around, the child is going to, I don't know, do stuff, but then after they go and rest. They jump around for an hour, they nap for half an hour, and then they wake up again and then have some fun. So what are you going to do with your own energy? And that could
Yeah.
be also something to kind of like consider with this
Yeah.
position.
And I don't know much about asteroids, frankly
Sorry,
speaking.
its astrological number is 81, not 51. Sorry.
I don't know much about asteroids, but from what you say, I just think in that direction, and I'm thinking that because Aries is very passionate and it's about initial inspiration about something. So when there is a muse together with Saturn, maybe we will finally get in touch with something that we like and put the effort to develop this. Because Aries energy fizzles out very easily. They start something and they just move on to the next and to the next and to the next and to the next. And maybe with Saturn there conjuncting this asteroid, which is the muse, and with the trine of Venus and Mars in fire signs again, then maybe it's about developing some passion of ours and having the stamina, the diligence, the to put the effort, the consistency to actually develop this and make something out of it, something tangible, which is Saturn. So yeah, that's what I can, that's my thoughts on this.
And Leo is about celebration. So it's the celebration of life, it's celebration of who we are. But you know what started happening in some European countries? Because it just came to my mind, obviously, with Leo, which is the sign of pride. Some of the prides in certain European countries are cancelled and now legislated. So they don't allow these kind of like marching. Is it right or wrong? I'm not going to kind of form an opinion on that because even though I'm gay, I've never been on a pride in my life because I don't think I need to celebrate
I
what
have been once.
closed doors, but it's going to trigger people surely. It's
Yes.
in the sign of Aries if it gets legislated and all those stuff.
Now that you say that it will trigger people, I've been thinking also because Aries is the toddler, so the young people, the young generation, and Saturn rules mature people, the elderly, and like the rules, and them's the rules indeed, maybe there will be some conflict arising due to some situation of disrespecting the boundaries of the others and not seeing the other points of view, like for example with these prides being regulated and for, not allowed in certain spaces. There could be some Aries energy arising out of it, and people going out to protest. Even it can cause like this kind of a wave of asserting oneself, and yeah. So
Even though it obviously Saturn hasn't been in the sign of Aries yet, but any type of gay reference, for example, is completely prohibited in schools in Hungary. So they did that last year pretty much. They said, no, every word needs to be removed that is actually prompting kids to become gay or lesbian or whatever type of things. And the reason why we are talking about this is because Aries is highly sexual. So, and we should have seen already some signs what to expect in Saturn in Pisces, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And yeah, Saturn in Pisces was like um, putting emotional boundaries about stuff, because Pisces is a very emotional sign, and kind of finding where you stand emotionally, where you end and the other person begins. So it's a more introvertive sign, if I may say so. And with Aries, now it's time for action. Whatever we managed to assert within ourselves, whatever we manage to regulate emotionally, is going to be put into action now. So our
Yeah.
beliefs kind of were built during Saturn in Pisces, what we truly authentically are, how we feel about something, and now it's going to be acted upon.
That's right. But putting sexuality aside, this chart is still talking to me about having to celebrate certain type of connections in life, having to cherish the dearest in our life who gives us support, and that's the Venus-Mars trine. And also igniting something that I truly desire and want, and I'm gonna go after it. And Saturn will give us the tools to actually make it happen. So that's
Yeah.
the exciting part.
Um, Also, I've been thinking that actually Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, actually rules the blood. And with Saturn in Aries, because I was thinking about relationships and how multi-dimensional this can be actually. With Saturn in Aries, we can have some advancement and some changes and renegotiating of terms and boundaries when it comes to relationships with our relatives, with the blood, with the kinship, so to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it rules like a whole ethnicity as well. So there could be like, are you a part of this or are you not a part of this? Are you going in or are you going out? Kind of energy, and it can become very fiery and conflict prone. But in the end, yeah, you will know where you stay in a way. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we did a fantastic job, actually.
Oh, I hope so.
It's always funny because we might be planning something to talk about, and then we just start the conversation, and then it goes into a complete different
Absolutely.
directions because this is what I love about the interviews. Two minds are kind of like merging, and then we start stimulating each other, and then it becomes a completely different
Yeah.
video that I planned.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. I agree. And yeah, thank you so much for having me again. Yeah, I hope we continue our collaboration together and we'll make another interview soon.
Let me know. Have a
Okay.
lovely day, everyone. See you soon. Don't forget to subscribe and like and so forth so that we can come back and then give you more material.
Yeah. Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
safe one. Bye bye.
Bye.